How's it going, everybody? I'm the BTC Reaper, and my goal on this channel is to teach you how to reap the rewards of trading while the price is going up or down. Uranium-backed stablecoin, Maker proposal goes nuclear. The so-called endgame plan is evolving quickly and weirdly over at Maker. Now, after offering vanilla T-bills and accounts payable to the blockchain, a new proposal is looking to add tokenized uranium. Our goal is to democratize ownership of uranium by providing stability value, easier access to exposure to a commodity that is growing in importance, reads the proposal. When Decrypt reached out for comment from the spokesperson for Uranium 308, they said that if they have an interest in this, I am sure we can find a way to make it happen. A lot of work needs to be done for us to get to that point, but we're in to win it, they said. So, EMAs and SMAs. I'm covering this because we made a change to our charts. We activated the EMAs and we will have them on the charts. We have them at different colors. An EMA acts quicker than an SMA, so that's the main difference between those two trend lines. Now they both calculate based on previous price history over the specified number of candle patterns. An EMA, the more recent candles hold more weight than the older one. So here's my style if you want to copy this. Here's the inputs. So we have 5, 20, 50, 100, 150, 200, 250, and 300. So that is for our market cipher A. So we're going to put that back away so you can see how we bounce off of those and use those as trends. Now keep in mind EMAs and SMAs are a bit laggy, so don't get too hyped on crosses. Like you have this cross here, you might bought in, but that was laggy, you would have gotten crashed out. This one would have played out for you, but just keep in mind that sometimes they don't work out all the time. So if you hear people talking about crosses with these, don't get too hyped. Now we do have one here where a lower time frame crossed above a higher that is technically bullish and can help push us up. But that's all we're going to cover on these for tonight. If you want a more in-depth video, drop a comment down below and say EMAs. RSI is starting to head down. Our stochastic is starting to push down. Momentum's starting to roll out. We do have a green dot that wants to push us forward though, as the VWAP is maintaining some bullish action. If this VWAP can gain some strength and we get green candles after this red candle, we could see a bounce off this EMA, break this resistance, but keep in mind we are ranging around this EMA and we keep getting rejected by it. Our money flow is starting to push under, so we are seeing a trend out. We are rejecting these resistances, so keep that in mind. Over on Bitcoin dominance, we are getting a pretty strong move up. Our lowest EMA is the highest right now, so it's way above everything else. Usually that is pretty decent, I believe. See, the last time we had that, probably had to go toward the bull market. Yeah, so last time we had that, we were in the bull market, so that could be good for us. Our stochastic is starting to round out, RSI is starting to head up, momentum is starting to push out, our VWAP is starting to head down, and our money flow is flirting with that neutral, so it does want to come down. I would watch if we do push under. We aren't really quite getting much steam off this breakout. Over on Bitcoin futures, we are kind of just going sideways here, kind of sloppy. This might be a shoulder head shoulder, got a little bit of a breakout, trying to reclaim that lost territory, but we could start to fall away if we're not careful. We did kind of fall under our EMA here, but we did ultimately push back above it. Our stochastic does have a bullish cross, RSI wants to head up, our momentum is starting to round out. Our VWAP is heading toward that neutral and wants to break to the bearish side, so if that happens, we could see a bit of a round here and break back into this pattern, and this could end up being more of a top right around here, and that could just kind of move our flag. Our money flow is still in the bearish territory. It's gone kind of flat. It's not really picking up any momentum one way or the other. So I would watch the VWAP. If the VWAP can get a bounce here, we could continue bullish momentum. We could see that double bottom play out, and that double bottom could try to push us forward. However, if we start to pull back here, we may meet that resistance that could break us toward that lower gapped area that we have. Over on Bitcoin, we didn't quite get a strong push for a breakout here either, and we almost started to pull back. RSI and Stochastic are starting to round together, weakening, so that's not very good for us. Our momentum is starting to push out. Our VWAP is pushing slightly bullish off that neutral, but it's not very strong. So if we get a red candle tomorrow, that VWAP could round out and we could see lower price action. Money flow is starting to push lower, so if that VWAP breaks bearish and the momentum gets a push down, then money flow is likely going to push lower and we'll see another leg to the downside, and we could reject from this zone right around our point of control. So if you're not familiar, that point of control for our volume profile is right here. Kind of hard to see with all the SMAs, but if you look, we are making continued bounces off that lower SMA, but usually you don't tend to stay above it for too long. You'll retrace your SMA to a lower SMA, so in this case we would go from our green down to our red, and then possibly bounce up through our green and continue forward, just like a resistance point, which is more of a weighted resistance point depending on where you're at. Over on the 4 hour, we do have some chop going on. This could be a bit of a symmetrical triangle here, so this wedge could have changed into a bit of a symmetrical triangle instead. That would give us a 50-50 possibility of breaking either way, either bullish or bearish. A bullish break would be a bull pendant break. A bull pendant would push us pretty decent out here. That would put us toward near our previous pattern, like I've been saying we could retest for. So pretty close to that pattern. However, this is also a symmetrical triangle, and since it's a symmetrical triangle, it's a 50-50 pattern that can break you down as well and push us back toward our other pattern. So we could push to either pattern. If we push back toward this pattern and break in, we are likely going to see lower price action. However, if we push toward our previous up channel, we still may see lower price action, but we might still have another little short-term pump going on. So something could be brewing for us, but it could just be a bunch of short-term hikes. RSI is pretty flat here. Stochastic is pushing down real quick. If you haven't already, smash that like, hit the subscribe, and join us in that Discord link up above or in the link down below. We're going to be doing some modeling that's almost done. I'm learning modeling. I'm almost done learning it. We'll be able to make our model, finish our model, make some prints, and when in the Discord, you're going to get that free print. Thanks for being patient. Momentum's overall pushing out. Money flow's overall pushing out is staying bullish though, so it does maintain bullish strength. We could break to the upside. The VWAP is in the bullish territory, but it's not gaining much strength. If we just roll over this 3.6, make another low, we could be in a bit of a bearish trend. That could break us down, and then we could see further downside if we slope from there. Over on the 1 hour, we have manipulation X that wants to drop us down. Stochastic's starting to round out, VWAP's rounding away, and our money flow is testing that neutral. If the money flow breaks through here and the VWAP continues down, we're likely going to see a bit of a break to the downside where we would test the support zone. If we don't manage to make a bounce off of that zone, that would be where we would see our breakdown. Over on graph for the daily, we are kind of suppressed by our EMAs. Stochastic's pushing down, does want to round up. RSI is overall pushing out as our Stochastic has no strength, so the RSI strength is waning. The money flow is pushing this neutral and does want to make a bearish cross, so keep an eye on that. If the VWAP starts to roll over here and the money flow continues in the bearish territory, we're likely going to see that leg down for our pattern. Over on the 4 hour, we are trying to bounce off support, so if we can get continued green candles and push past this local resistance area, that would be bullish for us. However, if we get rejected by this EMA and start to push out, we could see a break of our pattern and the start of our breakdown. Stochastic is rolling away. RSI does want to make a bounce up as it still has some bullish strength left. Our money flow is trying to push through that neutral and gain some bullish strength. So if we can manage to gain some bullish strength with our VWAP crossing that neutral, then we could get a pretty decent move to the upside, just like back here. However, if that money flow doesn't sustain and the VWAP doesn't sustain, then we could reject and see another downswing just like right here. Momentum is starting to push out, so we do have bearish momentum, but with that VWAP trying to cross bullish, it does want to round. So it's going to be very important if these can manage to sustain new highs. Otherwise, if we get lower highs and then round out, we could start a bearish trend that could break us down. Over on the 2 hour, we have a manipulation X that's not really carrying us too far down yet. We got a little bit of a dip and we're trying to bounce. RSI is starting to kind of curl out. Our stochastic's pretty beat down. It got a fall from a bearish divergence. It is trying to ramp back up though, so if it can cross through the 30, we could reclaim bullish strength and see the RSI reclaim some movement to the upside. Our money flow does want to overall push out. We are getting a new high for locally, so we are in a local bull trend since this point back here, since we started to break down. But overall, we got rejected by this 4 zone, so if we continue down and make a new low, we could see lower price action. Our momentum does want to push up as our VWAP's trying to push bullish, but if this VWAP starts to round out, we could get a short-lived bullish pump here. I would keep an eye on this 1 hour. If the 1 hour starts to weaken, that's where we would likely see that push to the downside. We are starting to kind of round here, so we could see a rounding top that could push us lower. Our stochastic's starting to round up, VWAP's starting to round away, our RSI is starting to round away. We are trying to break through this resistance. If we break through, we could see a push to the downside, as these 3 EMAs are really close together. Our momentum does want to round. With that VWAP starting to push, that momentum's likely going to push under with it. Our money flow is in the bearish territory, so if that VWAP continues down and that momentum pushes out, we're likely going to see further continual push to the downside. Over on Anchor, we have a short-lived hype pump. Tried to break our resistance. RSI is pretty flat. Stochastic is trying to push up with a bullish cross. Our momentum wants to push up with the green dot, and our VWAP's trying to push up. The money flows in the bullish territory, but it's a little dicey as it's just hovering above that neutral. If that money flow and VWAP start to push under here, we're likely going to reject this pattern and push down toward our lower areas where we have that gap. Over on the 4 hour, we are trying to get a bit of a round here to kind of curl us up. We are in a bit of a flag that could try to invalidate this pattern, so keep that in mind. We are getting pretty tight here as far as resistances. If we break above this black one, I believe that's our 300, then we could see a pretty strong move to the upside. Last time we did that, we got this breakout here. But I would just watch. If we reject, then it's likely we could see a pretty strong move to the downside as well. Stochastic is overall pushing out, RSI is overall trending away, our momentum is overall curling away, and the money flow is starting to make a bearish trend, so I would watch out on that. Our VWAP does want to push this neutral, so if it can cross through that neutral, gain some bullish strength, and the money flow rounds up, we could get a pretty decent move to the upside, break this, and push forward. Over on the 2 hour, we are trying to ramp up pretty decently. Our RSI is trying to push up, Stochastic's trying to run up. Our money flow is trying to bounce off the neutral with a relative local high. We're meeting resistance at 5 where we've met resistance several times before. So if our money flow curls away and goes bearish here, we could see some downside. Our VWAP does want to push to the bull side, but that does also mean resistance, or it's met resistance before at that same point. Over on the 1 hour, you can see we might have a bit of a double bottom here that could try to push us up and away from this pattern. Stochastic's trying to ramp up is through the bullish territory, so if it continues, our RSI is going to push forward. Our money flow is starting to round out, so I would keep a close eye on this, but our VWAP is running up in the bullish territory, so we are doing pretty decent for those. Momentum is pushing to the upside as our VWAP's in the bullish territory. If our VWAP can sustain bullish action, then momentum will become bullish as well. Over on XRP for the daily, we're pretty sandwiched here. We want to break our point control, but we keep bouncing off of it. We're kind of rejecting these SMAs, and everything's getting really tight for us. Usually when they get tight, you get moves. So we had a decent downtrend. See if everything got real tight, we broke to the upside. Everything got real tight, we tried to break to the downside. So when you see these EMAs get tight like this, that's not too good a sign. They are starting to point to the downside. Here they were starting to curl to the upside. So that could be indicative that we could break down, kind of like they were doing here. But just something to watch out for. Stochastic is overall rounding away. We do have bearish divergences as our price action is trying to maintain higher highs and Stochastic is pushing out. RSI is starting to round away, momentum's rounding out. Our VWAP and money flow are pushing into the bearish territory, so if this continues, we're likely going to see a leg to the downside. We are getting a somewhat test of this low. If we break this 10 zone, push back up, get a lower high, then we would start a bearish trend that could break this point control and push us toward that value area low. Did not mean to hit that. We're on the 4 hour, not sure why it got so tight there. We are starting to get manipulation X that wants to jump us down. We have a bearish cross on this EMA as our lower one broke under a higher EMA. So we are starting to push down. We are trying to push off a higher one, but if that continues, that could be indicative of higher time frames starting to push down. RSI does want to head up. Stochastic's overall pushing out. Our money flow does want to push this neutral and go bullish, but it's kind of struggling still. That VWAP is pretty flat here, is in the bearish territory. Our momentum is setting lower lows, so we do have more bearish action here on the 4 hour that I'm seeing, but we have potential to go bullish if the money flow and VWAP can cross. That would be dependent on lower time frame. Over on the 2 hour, you can see the lower SMAs are starting to fall under the higher SMAs, so we may see a push to the downside. Last time that happened, we were pretty low. Stochastic's starting to round out. Momentum's starting to push to the downside. We do have a green dot as that VWAP wants to go bullish. The money flow does want to go bullish, but it's kind of stalling under this neutral. Our Stochastic's overall pushing out in a bearish trend. It does have a bullish cross, but that could be short-lived like last time. Our RSI is going pretty flat as our Stochastic's just struggling to maintain any kind of bullish or bearish momentum. We are slightly in the bearish territory, so if we don't push above the 30 here, we're likely going to see the RSI start to wane out. Over on the 1 hour, our lower EMA is trying to push off and cross above a higher one after dipping below it. So that could help us push forward, but just watch out as it could come back under and get rejected. Stochastic's starting to round away. RSI does want to push up as it is bullish still. Our VWAP is in a slight bullish trend with higher highs, and our money flow is going bullish, so that does look positive for us on the 1 hour. If that can continue, we may get pushed up and see this lower EMA continue to push us higher. Momentum does want to curl to the upside as our VWAP is in the bullish territory. It is getting pretty high though. Last time we came up here, last couple times, we did see rejection, so do keep that in mind. Over on Algo for the daily, we are starting to get rejected by our resistance area, and we are rejecting our value area low very slightly. So if we get a confirmation red candle tomorrow, we could continue to the downside. RSI is starting to push out, stochastic is getting tight, and it does have a slight bullish cross, but that may be short-lived. Watch very closely, as if it pushes up from here, that will be good for the RSI, and the RSI could continue up. However, if it starts to fall here, the RSI is going to take a bit of a dip. Momentum is pushing out, and our money flow is testing that neutral. Money flow does want to break to the bearish side, so I would keep an eye on it. If it does break through and the VWAP rounds away, we would likely see lower price action to the downside. Over on the 4-hour, you can see we're getting pretty tight with our EMAs here. They are starting to stair step to the upside as we're tight, so that could be indicative of a push to the upside. Stochastic is starting to push out, RSI is pretty flat. Our momentum's overall pushing now and the money flow is pushing down, so if the money flow breaks bearish and the VWAP starts to round out, we're likely going to see lower price action. Over on the 2-hour, you can see we're starting to get a bit of a push out here, so that's not good for us. Our EMA is starting to reject by a higher EMA, so that could start a downtrend, and we may break this lower EMA. Or the lower EMA, that's a higher time frame though. RSI is starting to push out, stochastic is starting to push down, our money flow is starting to push toward that neutral and could break bearish. Our VWAP's in the bearish territory, invalidating that green dot our momentum had. So if that continues and the money flow pushes under, we're likely going to see a pretty decent move to the downside. We would likely see a push to this EMA. Over on the 1-hour, you can see everything's pretty tight and we're starting to reject our higher EMA here. If this lower EMA crosses under that higher EMA, everything else may start to round away from here. Our stochastic is starting to take a dive, RSI is starting to slide, our VWAP's pushing down pretty decent, and our money flow's in the bearish territory. The money flow does want to take a retest, so if it gets up and manages to break through this 3-4 zone, that would be good for us. However, if it just comes back up to this 3 zone and then breaks back to the downside, that could start a push to the downside pretty strong. Momentum is starting to round away as our VWAP is pushing in the bearish territory as well. Over on Doge for the daily, we're on the 1-hour. We are trying to get a little bit of a push here. We may have a bit of a bear flag, so I would keep an eye on it. Stochastic is getting a little bit of a bullish cross. It is above the 30, so that is in bullish territory. If it can maintain this cross, the RSI is likely going to continue up. Our money flow is starting to curl out, and our VWAP's trying to push to that neutral. If the VWAP can break bullish, then our money flow may start to curl, and we could see a push to the upside. Our momentum does want to round up as well, but I would keep an eye on things. We are trying to reject this EMA, which is under a higher EMA. If that continues, we may see these other ones start to push out. Over on the 4-hour, we have a manipulation X that got invalidated by a bullish engulfing candle, so our lower EMA is trying to cross up and go bullish. If that can sustain, we may see a decent push to the upside. Stochastic is trying to round up, RSI is trying to make a rebound, our momentum wants to push up as our VWAP is trying to go toward that neutral. If that VWAP can go bullish while our money flow maintains bullish strength, we may get a decent push through some of these EMAs, and we may even retest breaking through that higher EMA up here. Over on the 2-hour, I just shrugged that away on accident. Stochastic's trying to run up pretty decently. RSI is starting to round away. Even though it has some strength, it is above the bearish territory, so if it continues, we may see the RSI bend back up. Our VWAP is trying to ramp up, giving our momentum a green dot, but I would watch out as we've met this zone several times before and rejected. Our money flow is heavy in the bearish territory, but we're really not pushing any lower, so that could show that we may have a bearish action, but it's not gaining much strength. Over on the 1-hour, we are starting to meet higher EMAs, and we are starting to pull away, so I would keep a close eye on this. We have a little bit of a gap to the downside we could fill here as well. Stochastic's starting to round out, RSI is starting to round out, VWAP's rounding away, and money flow is trying to break bullish, but it's kind of struggling here. Momentum is starting to round away as that VWAP's fallen to the bearish side. Over on SHIB on the daily, we are maintaining this flag. We did get a freak breakout, but we are trying to reject away. RSI is starting to reject, stochastic does have a bullish cross, but we're in the bearish territory still, so if it rejects here, we would see a push to the downside with that RSI. VWAP is struggling to maintain bullish strength and go through that neutral, so it could push out and round away here. If that does happen, we would confirm a bearish trend. Our money flows overall stair-stepping out, and our momentum does want to round up, but we are making lower lows, so we could push out from here. Over on the 4-hour, you can see we're retesting our flag, so if we're not able to break through here, we're likely going to reject and see lower price action. Momentum is starting to round out, and our RSI is pushing up as our stochastic wants to get a bullish cross, but if our other indicators on the lower time frames don't maintain stay. But if our indicators on the lower time frames don't say that we could see a move to the upside, we'll likely see a pullback from here. Our momentum is starting to push out with the red dot, but with that VWAP trying to break to the bullish side, we could see a snap back to the upside. Over on the 2-hour, we have a manipulation X that got invalidated. We are trying to push up. Stochastic is trying to run up, and our RSI is trying to push up, but the RSI is starting to flatten out, even though it has a little bit of bullish strength here. So if that stochastic starts to round away here, our RSI is likely going to push under, VWAP could reject, and the money flow could drag under. So I would keep an eye on that. Our VWAP is in a pretty high spot, money flow struggling to maintain bullish strength, and the momentum does have a green dot, but that could be short-lived as the VWAP curls under. Over on the 1-hour, we have a reversal arrow here. That reversal arrow does show we want to push to the downside. Stochastic is starting to round out, RSI is starting to round away, and our VWAP is starting to round away. The money flow is in the bullish territory, but it's struggling, so overall everything is suggesting we may see a push to the downside. I would watch the next candles very closely. Thank you for watching tonight's video. I hope you have a wonderful night.